Hey everyone, how you doing? It's Manny here. I have a recording studio called Suplex Audio. I'm a producer, musician, and artist, and I have some cool clips on this YouTube. And I wanted today to talk about. I want to do a thing on dynamic microphones and condensers and tube condensers and ribbons. Some of these are going to be things that a lot of people know. Some of these may be rare. If you're a totally versed producer and you've seen it all, then maybe go ahead and move on to another video if you've seen all this stuff. But I do have some cool treats, and I want to share with you what I know about dynamic microphones in a recording studio. And like I said, my name is Manny Nieto. I have a studio called Suplex Audio. I do these episodes for Produce Like a Pro, where I get to experiment and use new gear, and that's always cool. But this is off the grid. This is just you and I, or just me sitting in my studio talking to myself. All right. So let's start today with one of the greatest dynamics. This is a 421. Now I'm going to run these not in an order for, special or cool. I'm just got a pile of mics over here that are dynamics. And I'm going to explain a little bit how I use them. And what we're not going to do today is some scientific graphs and tell you all that stuff. We're going to really be the brass tacks of how I use these, and if I see one, what I get excited about. All right, so this is a 421, a Sennheiser 421, one of the most classic mics. Every pretty much world-class studio in the world will have a handful of these or a dozen of these. These are tom mics. I mean, these are desert island mics. I mean, we only got one mic. This can do it just as much as a 57, but this one just has a little bit more quality. I mean, it just always sounds great. I use this on the kick drum. If there's a hole in the kick drum, I usually put it about that far in or a little bit more in. I've used this for vocals, for guitars, for bass guitar, toms on the drums, Leslie's, I mean, you name it, this mic can do it all. Not too difficult to use, just use your ears. It has a little switch here, which is kind of like a roll-off switch. One is for M for music, so if you crank this around, right now it is on S for speech, and then you click it over for music. It's kind of like a low cut rumble, so if someone's singing in it, you would have it on S, or if you don't like the way it sounds, you could just kind of click it until it sounds right. Really useful microphone. The only thing about this, fair warning, is when you grab the mic, that is just the notorious thing that happens, and this falls to the ground and breaks or ruins the grill. But that's the way they designed it, and it's never changed. There is a company that will do a new version of this. I usually, when I have a really serious session and I don't really have time to mess around with the safety of the mic, I'll duct tape this pretty hardcore or gaff tape it. I do have these kind of fast release little things that you add to the end of this, so you can just click it and it comes off. I recommend that for if you have a studio and you always have constant sessions. That really saves me. I can just grab the mic, move it out of the way when the drummer's taking his drums out. I don't have to worry about, it just saves me a lot of time by doing this. Okay, Sennheiser 421, one of the greatest in the world. I do recommend, if you have a studio, at least to get one. The price of these used to be really expensive, $400 to $500. That's a lot for a dynamic, but I have some other dynamics that can be more than that. But generally speaking, these went on sale in December for about $200. So that means the market's been flooded by some, reasonably affordable 421. So just look out there for them. $250, $300, $199 is killer for these. They have some vintage ones that are white. They look just like this. I've tested those with a buddy of mine, and they actually they have a little bit more low end than these ones. So if you see a white one, which is a vintage one, and it's from a reliable source and it has more low end, get it, because that is the bomb. Once again, one of my favorites. I'll always have one of these lying around for something. Favorite guitar and kick drum mic. All right, down one. Now I'm going to go into this mic. This is a Beyerdynamic M88. What is this known for? And does anybody ever use the Beyer M88? Well, I was turned on to this when I recorded with Steve Albini. He did my second record. I remember I didn't know I wasn't producing at the time, but it was hanging down, and the speaker, a bass rig, was here, and it just hung it over the rig, and it just was, you know, the sound was coming this way on it, but and I wrote down what the mic was. Later on, when I started recording, I had to get one because Steve Albini used it, but I've come to find out that the M88 is the Rolling Stone kick drum microphone. Wow. All right. So this is, you can find these 150 to maybe 300 bucks. I don't know. I'm not going to be going on Reverb and doing the pricing. I'm just giving you a general idea. So an M88, amazing for bass guitar, amazing for kick drum, as I break it, and God, I can just say how much I love this mic. It really does sound incredible. Something I just found out about a year ago, which actually blew my mind about this. I don't know if I think it's called a moving coil or whatever the design is. I had an artist came in and he was going to do a cover, and kind of like on the spot, he's like, "Hey Manny, I'm gonna put the acoustic down. I'm gonna put on an acoustic guitar, and I want to sing a song for my father. Can you do a recording for me?" So we just said whatever. I didn't care, and I grabbed this, and I was like, "All right." And I put a Beyer 160 ribbon mic on the guitar, and then I gave him this to sing. And the only reason I gave him this to sing, I think I saw Kurt Cobain. I forget, remember who was singing in one of these, and I go, "Wow, let's just see how it sounds." So he's singing a song, and I have a 160 on the acoustic guitar. This is the acoustic guitar. And after, when I went to mix it, I put up the 160, which is a ribbon microphone, a classic German ribbon, made by the same company, Beyerdynamics. And sounded beautiful. And then I got to the M88, and I thought maybe I made a mistake. Did I have a gate on the acoustic? Because there was really no acoustic guitar in his vocals. And I looked at my plugins. I'm like, oh my God, how in the hell did that happen? So I did it again. I put it on the mic and I really checked it. And since he was singing and the acoustic guitar was below him, which is almost a cancellation point, or wherever the acoustic sound was coming up into the microphone while he was singing on it, I could not hear the acoustic. That was mind-blowing. I put compression on it, and it just sounded a faint noise. So you heard him singing great, and you barely heard the acoustic guitar. Now, in the ribbon mic that was pointed towards the guitar, I totally heard everything. It doesn't matter if he was singing loud, low. I heard the acoustic guitar, and I had heard a vocal bleed entering the mic. But this one that was on his voice, no acoustic below it. So those Germans, they can really make a good dynamic. So a Beyerdynamic M88, a surprising, find in all of dynamics, but even for me, who's been recording a lot of years, I still am shocked on how cool this mic is. So this is a M88, if you can see that, I think it's called a TG. Where is it? Beyerdynamic. Which one is this? M88. Yeah, it's a TG M88. Now they have different ones. I've seen some in silver. I've seen them old. I'm assuming if it's Beyer, they're all pretty much good. I don't think, but there is no like, oh, you got to get the vintage one because blah, 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 blah. Maybe if you get an old one, that would be closer to what the Stones used. But, yeah, there it is. So the M88, crazy cool dynamic. All right, so now we're going to go to, let's hear all the boos, boo, a 57. There was a whole culture of weirdos and freaks and recording guys and really cool enthusiasts that go crazy over older 57s. There's some guys that take out the transformer. There's some guys that, one of my buddies buys a kit, you get the really old school style capsule, and then they get a body, and they basically spend about $200 to get a 57. I'll just say this. I love this on snare. I always use this on snare. I've always used this on guitar. Me, or myself particularly, it doesn't sound good on my voice, but I think Zach De La Rocha from Rage Against the Machine, I was lucky enough to be there when Garth Richardson was recording them at Sound City, and he just had this in his hand, and he was just singing the first Rage record. I don't know if later on, when he did the records with the Rick Rubin, if he went away from using the 57, but it's an American classic. And once again, every studio should have one. There are people, even Steve Albini, the guy that showed me how to record, he's not into these. They don't make me crazy. I love them, and I can't complain. They sound always great on the snare, and I'll probably say 99% of all the records I've done since 2098, 97 were done with a 57. Now, speaking of that, we're going to use that little 1% mic I'm going to show you that I use that's not a 57. Okay, once again, a Beyer. This is called a Beyer 201. This is an NC 201. I think there's TGs and NCs. I should look up online and figure out all the differences, except I know when I always buy these, I get an NC. Beyerdynamic 201. It is a dynamic mic. It weighs a lot. I was kind of familiarized with this when I did my second record again with Steve Albini, and he had this on the top of the snare. Now, I wasn't recording, so I can't tell you at that time what it was doing or why. Who cares? It was just, all right, it's a cool looking black mic. So made a note, wrote it down on a paper, and I thought if I get a studio, I'm going to get it. So then I got one, and I started using it, and I realized why Steve likes it. It is pretty incredible for top of the snare, bottom of the snare, hi-hat, anything that you use this on. It has great cancellation, kind of like the M88. I don't know what their design is or how they do it. Obviously, there's two sets of vents. I'm sure there's something about the sound hitting here, sound coming through the back and canceling out any noise around it. Probably, I don't know. But I'll tell you this much. This mic is incredible. So if I was having a weird sounding snare or having a lot of issues with maybe even getting a good sound, I'll use this on the top, even on the side, and underneath. One thing that kind of was cool about this, like I said about the M88, in the studio, is I was doing a cumbia band. There's a band called Very Be Careful. Really awesome Los Angeles band. I did like 2 records for them. And I remember this always making me happy because it didn't pick up a lot of things around it. So I actually used this on the cowbell. Now you would say, who cares? It's a cowbell. It's the loudest thing. But that's exactly why. I wanted to know if I mic'd the cowbell, that nothing else was. I had the accordion right next to it. I didn't want the accordion in the cowbell mic. And you know what? This mic did it. It had great cancellation where all the cowbell and the fish guy and the bass rig that was loud, the accordion player, which was right next to it, all I heard was cowbell with this. So I was able to get a good level of being able to mix it, EQ it, put it in the mix, really feed it into the band, and this mic was absolutely stunning. I still to this day use it a lot when I can. If I have a live setup and I've done like, here's the drum set and I have like 2 stacks here, if I put this mic, and a tip for doing, if you have all the musicians in one room, is make sure that all the backs of the mic are facing the loudest sound sources of things. So, you know, if the guitar rigs are over here, you have the drums like that. If the drums are here, guitars are, you know, the mic should be all around facing with the backside to the loudest sound source. And the coolest thing is, like, I've made a mistake a few times and I've used a different kind of dynamic or a condenser on a guitar rig next to the drums, even though I had the rear of it to the drum set right here, certain parts of the song he'd be crashing his hi-hat, and oh my god, it killed me. I got hi-hat in the guitar mic, and it was a little bit of a bitch to kind of EQ that out. I did it, no one ever knew it, but when I use these mics, I don't have that issue. And if I have a loud drummer and I'm doing a session and I solo the guitars, they're always blown away that I don't have a gate on it, but there isn't drums in this mic. And that's what you want it. Yeah, there's a little bit of guitar from the room in here, but Beyer 201s. These are, you know, you can find these. I think Guitar Center, I saw one for 120 bucks. If you go online to Guitar Center, that's the tip of the day. Go check their website out and you can find really cool mics. So I think this one I bought it off eBay for like 200, 250. All right, so this is the Beyer 201, a dynamic microphone, my top 10, cool dynamic. Okay, take it easy. This is a 58. I know some of you guys have seen all these, but I'm just going to go through them on kind of how I use them, like I explained those ones, and why I even have a 58. I have two of them. For myself and my own band, for whatever reason, if I sing into this mic and I put some EQ on it with a little bit of kind of a distortion compression, it sounds awesome on my vocals. And, you know, it's sad. I've spent a lot of money on all these cool mics, and they sound terrible on my own voice. So, once again, it's really good to have a variety because you never know how the singer's going to sound. Now, in my old studio, I would have the drums here, and sometimes you'd have this mic in the back of the room and someone would be singing in it. But a lot of times I'd leave it up because, okay, hey, man, if you need to talk to the drummer while you're recording, this is his talk back. But a lot of times they're like rocking out. They don't even talk in it. And I've come to find out at the back of the room, if you have a 58 pointed away from the drum set, the greatest snare sound. It's so good. And I think that's why, you know, on the technical side, I don't know if I'll explain it correct, but dynamics are really great up on loud sound sources, but as you move them farther away, the detail of the quality of the sound is diminished by the type of how this microphone is made. Basically like a little plastic membrane that moves, and it moves a coil down on the magnets. So the sound pressure has got to move, has to move that little plastic, whatever, I'm not sure, I forgot the name of it, but whatever that does has to move. That takes a, so if you scream in this, yeah, sounds great. But if a drummer is 30 feet away, you're gonna lose the sound. That's why condensers, when they came out, they blew everybody's mind because you can put them farther away and they capture better detail. And that's because of the way they're made. They're not made like a dynamic, and they need phantom power to run. These are strictly mics you just plug in and go. All right, and it's banged up. This is a 58. I've used it for everything. Room mics for drums, vocals, guitar, really killer for guitars, and kind of like when you just don't give a fuck and you're like, oh, you don't like that guy in that band? Who cares? You put it up on his mic and put it up on his rig, and he's like, oh, sounds fucking good. All right, I cussed. I'm 56. You know, I'm a dad. You lose your filter after 55. All right. Now we're going to get into some fun stuff. What is that? This is an AKG D24, known as the Frank Sinatra microphone. This is a dynamic, and there is pictures of Frank Sinatra, you know, crooning in these. Now, why do I have the Frank Sinatra AKG? This is a 60s D24. Because I am blown away by Ringo Starr. And if you don't know it, now you know it. Don't get mad at me. I'm just a messenger. This is the same mic as a D19, which is Ringo Starr's overhead. Also, under all the toms are D19s, under a snare. They're almost impossible to find working. They have this little roll-off switch right here, and it moves. A lot of them don't work anymore. And it's really terrible. They sound really thin. So if you're going to buy a Frank Sinatra D24, also known the internals are exactly of a D19. Get it from someone reputable and know that it works. And if you do get it and this is broken, or you need a special cable for this, I have the cable that came with this. Don't buy it unless you know a tech that can fix it for you. And if you get it and the guy's like, well, this isn't working, it's kind of lost its low end, you know, those old mics, that guy's full of it. Because these should be working, and that needs to be working, and it needs to have low end to fulfill why you would even spend the money. This mic is $600 to $800. I know that's a lot for a dynamic, but if you want to buy a D19, it's $1,500 to $2,000, maybe $1,100-$1,200 if you can get a D19. But it's the same mic, except this one has the little pop filter on the front. I really like this mic. No, so if you're asking yourself, like, well, who cares? You know why? What's the difference between these two? They're dynamics, you know? Well, a huge difference. This is German engineered, and they're a bunch of freaks. I said it. There is so much engineering in this mic. It's incredible. Now, I was not a believer. A buddy of mine had a bunch of mics that he was selling, and some of them came from Michael Beinhorn, the producer. And I was always interested to know, why would someone pay a lot of money for this mic? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's a dynamic. So I got a drum set, and I put up this mic, and I put up that mic, and let's say, I can't remember what the other one was, but let's say I use this. Symbolically, they're all dynamics. After I recorded them, I listened back. You know, this sounds exactly what I thought it would sound like. Then this one, yeah, sounds like it doesn't have a lot of detail to it, but that's actually kind of cool. Like, it made the drums sound fat, and yeah, the cymbals were a little ratty, but you know, you could work with that. So then I listened to this one, and I thought, oh, kind of sounds like this, but then I go, what is that sound? And I listened to it, and there was a sparkle and a harmonics of the cymbals that I've never heard in a dynamic. I can't explain that. It was just this shimmer in the upper frequencies that did not sound anything close to a 57 or 58. So then I compressed it to see if I compress this microphone and then I compressed this microphone, would they sound the same? And it was insane that this microphone compressed sounded amazing. I mean, it just, there was a low end in the snare. For instance, as a producer and an engineer, if I have this mic above the drummer, let's say I usually do this 2.5 sticks. Let's say this is the only thing in the overheads, and it's looking down, like kind of between the snare, the edge of the snare. Here's the floor tone, that's the kick drum, and that's the drummer playing it. If I listen back to it, and the drummer's playing the hi-hat and the snare and the kick, usually a 57 is going to be grabbing the closest things that's there. It's not going to be picking favorites. This mic heard the low end of the kick drum and the body of the snare. I slammed it with compression, and the cymbals sounded lovely. So that's a lot of money for a dynamic. If you're not going to take it to that next level, it's not a big deal, because no one would ever notice anyway. As soon as you put a band on, you're going to be like, listen to that overhead with that D24, and they're like, sounds like drums. Well, there you go. Don't get your feelings hurt. But if you have it and it does sound like drums, that's a good thing. All right, so this is the AKG D24, also known as the D19 Ringo Starr drums. Now, I actually used this on some guitars, and I loved it. So I think this is, you could consider using this the way you would use a 57. Everyone in the studio is fine. I'm a little precious about it because I love it. It was very expensive, and I don't want this to break. And I do want to have it retain its low end. So I do take care of it, and I put it in a special place for all my special mics. Okay, let's get weird. Here you go. What the hell is that? Look at that cable. Well, I can say that this isn't mine, but I have a buddy that's letting me use it, and I am thrilled to death about this mic. It's called a Electro-Voice model 667A. Why would I even want to check this mic out? I mean, look at it, it's huge. And this is the original kind of like mic holder. I think there was these clips here, but it's a little bit of something to get this sit. It's kind of not light, but it's also heavy and it's awkward. This microphone is what was used on Cream, like White Room. This is Ginger Baker's hi-hats, possibly a snare, maybe even kick drum. It was a very classic dynamic mic. These now, these were common to be $300 or $400. I think now they're about $600. But I did use these the other day on hi-hats, and whew, it was nice. I know you'd probably be like, hi-hats, who cares? Well, I care a little bit about hi-hats. I love the faces. I love, you know, some of the classic records from the 70s. They before Dave Grohl infected everyone to slam your cymbals, closed hi-hats, even like Devo, and punk rock bands like the Ramones, a closed hi-hat was really important. And if you've used the 57, and you know, everybody has their go-to for hi-hats, and even guys put a little distortion on it, so it's kind of crusty, and who cares? I've come to find out that there'll be another mic I'll be showing you in a little bit, but when you get a mic like this on the hi-hats, it's incredible on how much it completes the drum set. And especially if you have some good hi-hat work, you have a really good drummer, it's really nice to know that you can lean on this, and it's great. So Cream, Ginger Baker, Electro-Voice 667A. This is a dynamic, a legendary dynamic. This isn't actually the one they use, but if you're out there in the world and you find one, buy it. Even if you don't have this, I'm sure you can put a standard mic clip on this and have it work. All right, so that's an Electro-Voice. Incoming. Oh boy, this is an SM7. Now in the modern world, people use these for podcasts, and you know, you see announcers and radio stations. This one in particular, I think is just a standard. This is a SM7B. It's supposed to have foam on this, but somewhere the foam got lost. Probably, I think, once again, like the Sennheiser, every studio in the world that's a world-class studio will have one of these. I can go blue in the face to tell my buddies that are starting or getting into recording that they should buy one. They get kind of blindsided by a bunch of other stuff, but the reason you'd want to get this microphone is this is Michael Jackson's vocals, this is Metallica vocals, Neil Young, Kim Deal from the Breeders used it. The Muse, how they get that really intense, like, vocal sound where it's like kind of like really intense. I forget the name of the Muse song, but and you can hear him breathing all fucking crazy. Anyways, this mic does it. And what you may run into if you buy one is that now I think you can get a cloud lifter and this will help it out. But usually when these are in world-class studios, they have a preamp. Neve preamps have sometimes 90 dBs of headroom, and you can crank these. But if you plug this into your Apollo or whatever DAW you have and you're using it straight in, it may not be loud enough and it may not sound its best. So I recommend, if you get one of these, I would recommend going to Guitar Center, $450, $300 used, $250 used. Maybe they're closer to $450 new. Get a cloud lifter with this, and if you have a studio, this will be one of your greatest vocal mics, hands down. And the reason, if you go to, like, you know, Vintage King or Sweetwater, and they're trying to talk you into like some microphones to get, and they probably won't mention this, is because they're still sold really cheap, and there's probably not a lot of profit margin when you sell this. So Guitar Center, you know, hey, yeah, it's one of the Shure families, but they're not telling you this is what Metallica used or everybody would buy one. Or when a kid walks in and buy a mic, you know, there's 7 mics up there. And he's like, what should I get? You know, oh, get the, you know, I don't know. I didn't even know what they would sell and what people would consider a good mic. But every studio has one of these. I've seen these used on a friend of mine, Robert Carranza, who he's done from Jack Johnson to Marilyn Manson to I think it's One Day as a Lion, Zach DeLorge's band. Anyways, he's Mars Volta and Supergrass and Blur. Who knows? I mean, he's just done everyone. There's not a time I'll just show up or I'll stop by to say hi to him, and I'll see this on a kick drum. I see it on a hi-hat, on the snare, on the guitar rig. And I asked him, I go, you know, how come he just, it's variety, you know? This thing can handle a twin reverb on 10, a Marshall on 10, a kick drum. John Theodore, the drummer for Queens of the Stone Age, I mean, he mics his kick drum up with this. So, yeah, it's a cool mic to get, and it's not that expensive. And still to this day, any studio that's in Los Angeles or in Hollywood that's great will have one. SM7, still a classic. All right, I'm gonna take a drink of water here because I don't know when this is gonna end, but not hopefully soon. All right, now we're gonna get into Manny's weird mics that he likes. This here is a Radio Shack mic, or Realistic. And if you don't know what Radio Shack was, in the old days, you would go to this store called Radio Shack and you could buy kits for electronics, how to build stuff. It was really super cool. As a kid, you'd love to go down there. But they used to sell microphones. So one of the most favorite microphones that I know of is the PZM, which is a Realistic PZM, but that was used actually by Beck. There's a song called Loser, and he literally sang into the PZM. Now, PZM is a boundary microphone, so it kind of has this, a capsule, and it's mounted to a plate. When the sound hits this surface, it travels to the microphone and picks up the sound. So they would call them boundary microphones. So you would have one. I don't have one, or I'd show it to you, but the same company makes this microphone. Now, I can't remember who the original one, it may be Electro-Voice, or it was, I can't remember it, but these were made by another company for Realistic, and I should have had that model, and I don't. I'll put it in the comments if I find it. It's called it's fading away, a 331070, I believe, and it's an Omni. And this little rubber thing right here is so it can lay on the ground. $29, 30 bucks still, but it's incredible. When I do guitars, I'll put like the 57 on the rig, and then I put on the stand as high as it go all the way up to the roof with this one, and I'll point it at the ceiling, and it just has great body, great low end, not a lot of high end. I've also put these in front of the drum set. Really great sounds. I mean, this mic makes me happy, and it's only 30 bucks, so you can't be snobby and be like, yeah, Manny Studio only has expensive, odd, weird mics. This is an odd one, but the one I have here is made in Japan. I have another one that's identical that's made in Japan, but I had one that was made in Mexico. Now, I'm a Latino, so I'll just say, I know I'm going against my people, but the Japanese ones sounded better. The Mexican ones were a little bit bigger in size, and it did not sound as good as this one. So whatever they contracted out to them down there, I'm not sure what they did. Maybe it was too much tequila. Maybe I got a mic that was made on, what's the bad day? Is it Monday? Because they came in with a hangover and didn't care. I don't know, something like that. So this is a really cool. There's an Omni, a beautiful mic, 30 bucks. Once again, a dynamic, really durable, kind of heavy. You know, it's made well. And that's a Realistic, I think it's called a 1070, a 331070. All right. we're winding down now. Don't worry, we're getting to the end of this. Okay, obviously you know this is some kind of drum mic. This is one of my favorite mics. It's called an Audio-Technica ATM230. It's a hypercardioid dynamic microphone. Now obviously you can see this, and you know, you clip this onto the rim of the drum, and then you can adjust, you know, the angle with that clip, and then once you adjust that angle, you have another adjustment here, so you can loosen it and just kind of move it up or down over the tom, floor tom. I guess you could probably even use it on a snare, but I never have. I will say this, I did a shootout at a friend's studio, and he had he had like 3 different sets. I brought my own AKG C12s, which are amazing tom mics. Then we used this one, and then we used an Earthworks, a new Earthworks. These had like a drum pack that's really cool. Actually, I would love to get one of those. I forget the other one. And when we listened back, this one had the least amount of bleed around it, and the cymbals sounded really good. I mean, they were just a little bit lower than all of them. They discontinued these. You can buy them in a drum pack if you can find them, like for $250 or $200. But I mean, no one's gonna care unless they watch this video, which Manny told you about it. I just don't think it's gonna catch on like wildfire. I think you're safe for a while. So great tom mic. I've not used this for anything else except toms. So if you know of this being used for anything else cool, maybe leave a comment, share a little bit of recording knowledge with us, to all 4 of you that are watching this. So Audio-Technica drum mic ATM230 is a wicked microphone that I recommend if you're recording drums and live bands. It completes the package for sure. I know, Manny, what are you doing? You're hurting me. 10-4, good buddy. We've got a microphone right here for a singer that doesn't like singing in microphones. That can hold this like a pacifier and put it in front of his face and get into it. 10-4, good buddy. Did you hear that? Oh, the headphones don't work? Son of a bitch. Okay. If you can find these, a lot of times they don't work as well. This one has a reverse, so I can use it. So I just, you know, same size, so you can plug it in a mic, because this would probably go into some kind of CB radio. I've used this mic, and it's so fucking cool. A lot of records, you know, after the singer's been stressed out and he's singing something, I'll give him this and I'll just tell him to hold it when he sings, and they usually get into it because it can hold it and it's something. This does make a noise, so I've also done it where I've taped this. Sometimes I'll tape this and just kind of hang it or put it under a main vocal mic or off to the side, like if let's say I'm using the Frank Sinatra mic. I'll just, you know, tape this so it's on all the time, somehow rig this up so it's like that, and I'll always have this cool sound, which does sound like, you know, like a radio. 10-4, everybody. Sounds really mono and flat, but when you distort it, it's awesome. So you can also make these. So if you can find these and you want to solder on an XLR on the end, that's cool. I made the best of this one. When I got it, I was able to test it, so I knew it worked. Problem in the future, this does make noise every time they click it, so I just have them hold this when they sing it, or I just tape it with some gaffer's tape so it's always on all the time. But singers really love this mic, and I do recommend something like this in your studio if you have one. This is a dynamic as well, old school. All right, fun time. Beyer, once again. I mean, honestly, if you went out and you bought, well, let me take it back. If you were going to buy some Beyer mics pre-2000, 2005 maybe, you could probably get away with every model they have. It's just amazing. You know, they're ribbon mics, the Beyer 160s, Beyer 500s, Beyer 230s, Beyer 130s, the 201 I showed you, the M88, the kick drum, Well, this mic has a little bit of a story about it. Technically, this is a Beyerdynamic M380, which is the sought-after, coveted kick drum mic that has been made famous by Mr. Albini himself, which it picks up from the front and then from the rear and gives you like, so if you put this inside the drum and this is the beater hitting it, you get the beater side, which is the click, and this picks up some of the room sound on the back side, which gives you the low end. So it's kind of a perfect balance. There's a company called Alien Microphones, I think, that make a really sick version of their own thing that kind of does that. It's like a figure eight. I think there's speakers. There's a speaker here, speaker here. This is probably cancel out, and then a speaker here and here, and then this one is cancel out. So you got this one picking up this way, this one picking up this way, canceling, I'm assuming. Or there's a way you can fool around with how it is. So anyways, back to this one. If you go online right now, and you can find one, it's a TGX50, and it's only the body. But previously to me having this modified or changed out, the TG50 is an outrageously cool microphone for bass guitar, for kick drum, kind of like, you know, very reminiscent of the things you would use with the M88, but its design is really made for, like, you know, kick drum, bass guitars, maybe stand-up bass or something like that. Now this one I sent off to a guy in Nashville. His name is Cole Pickings. Well, that's his company, Cole. He took out the internals, and if you go looking, I can't tell you the model number because I don't know it, but when they had the sought-after ones they don't make anymore, the Beyer 380s or M380s, the reason that they're sought after now, because once they break, you can't replace them. Beyer had used capsules or elements from their headphones, and it was a certain headphone they had. And then once they discontinued it, they discontinued the headphones and this microphone, and you can't if they break. But in the world, there's a bunch of headphones out there, and if you can find the headphones and you're a repair guy, you can put them to the side. And technically, when they discontinued the M380, they just basically relabeled it the TGX50, used a different kind of element or mic capsule or whatever that is, and resold it. And just, you know, they kept the bodies. So if you find one and you don't find a real 380, this cat out there can, if he has them, you got to call him. He can change it. So this one I bought for about $100, and I think he switched it out inside for about $200 with shipping and everything. So I'm into this mic $300, but it's like $600 to $1,000 now for a 380. I really like this mic previously or previous to the changing of it, and now I'm really happy with it now that it's technically made into a 380 inside of a TGX50. But now I got to go out and find a TGX50 so I can have this one back in my arsenal. Killer mic for bass guitar, kick drum, stand-up bass. Probably get away with it on toms. But exceptionally great mic, made by Beyer, German engineering, those son of a guns. Okay, we are now back to weirdness. This is a very beautiful looking Altec 633A, or salt shaker mic. Now what people don't know is this is a Omni. If you ever get a microphone and for instance, I'll show you this. There's no vents around the backside, and that's usually like an Omni. See, do I have another one here? I don't. Let's see, what can I use? Where is my Beyer? There it is. Okay. I don't know if this would really work, but if you see a Beyer, there's these little vents here. That has a lot to do with the cancellation of how it sounds. And if you look at the AKG and you see this over here, I'm sure this has something to do with the elements inside that help it It's not a Omni, and it helps it have rejection of sound behind it, makes it sound better. I've gotten mics and I've taped these up, so there's only sound in the front. It becomes an Omni. And if you have a cheap mic, you can make them in Omnis. Matter of fact, yeah. So this mic, the reason I even got this mic was I did a session for a friend of mine, Thomas Scriven. He has a company called Analoger, really cool company. And he had a lot of different, there's another microphone I'll be showing you soon. He had these microphones that he had used. He'd done a record with Ross Robinson. Ross Robinson is a producer of like Korn and Slipknot, and he's done The Cure. He's a real super badass. Done a lot of, and people know him as a metal producer, but I think he's done all kinds of styles of music. He's really kind of a legend locally. Did At the Drive-In. I think he did their big record, their first record on Warner Brothers. So, Altec 633. So, my buddy Thomas said I had to use all his mics. He goes, you gotta use these mics. I was like, oh God, all right, let's check it out. So, he said he demanded this has to be on guitar. All right, it's 50s, you know, crazy looking mic. I put it on the guitar, and I have actually this mic. And because I don't know how it's really going to sound, I didn't want to take a chance, so I used it with a 421 next to it. And I think I maybe even had a ribbon mic. When I got back the track, mind blown. And that's right. This mic had, if you can imagine, like a 57, its sound comes up to like, let's say right here. Let's say you're looking at a graph of sound. I know it doesn't make sense, but just go with me on this. So if this is the sound of a 57, you're like, oh yeah, it's the ultimate 57. This mic went into this other territory that was like, what the hell is that? And what it didn't have, if you can imagine this being like smoggy, and then all the smog blew away, and then you had this mic. And the top end, like let's say this is the top end that is screechy and annoying, it didn't even get close to it. So I'm blown away now. Now I gotta find one. And thank God he actually sold me the one that he had, which I didn't even know how. I think he got some other ones and he just was feeling good that day and he sold me this. And then I come to find out that in the, I think if you go to like, you're gonna go there, but if you were to go to Sunset Sound, they have a bunch of these. And I think these were kind of like used on the snare, small amps, probably drums. It was kind of like their version of like a 57. How they probably reason is because it's really durable. I mean, it is pretty heavy. Definitely could knock someone out with this. But, you know, it got the job done. And it really, really blew my mind and how good it was. So I'm actually just, I don't think I will sell this. I think I'm trying to find some other ones actually, because I'd love to have one or two just to have, to be a jerk and say, yeah, I got 3 of these. How many do you have? And then you go, I've got 7. And then I feel sad because you have more than I do. Actually, Thomas does have like 12 right now. So yeah, I am, only got 1. So that's used on guitars all day. We're winding down. Bear with me. We're almost done here. Alrighty. Now this is fun. These ones. These are AKG D160s. Now give me a second. I'm drinking some water. Why did I get these? That's what I asked myself. Why in the hell did you buy these? Well, there was a website that showed all these cool mics that the Beatles used. Now, I was just showing you how the Frank Sinatra D24. I've always wanted a D19. I can't afford it, so I bought at half the price the D24, so I'm super pumped. I have some old C12s. And really, I had, a U67, but I really wanted to get some mics when I have really strange bands. I want to put mics on them that sound like another era. So you can use plugins to change stuff. You can use distortions. I love microphones to change the mood of what we're doing. So I looked up on the Beatles, and they had D160s. And it showed Ringo Starr singing one, and Paul McCartney and John Lennon were singing in them. So yeah, it's an AKG D160E. They're a little bit different. This one has a tape or sticker kind of. This one, it's stamped in. I'm assuming this one's older. Well, I had 4 of these, and I didn't check them properly, but a buddy of mine, I was so excited to get these that he's like, oh, I'd love to get those. And I go, well, I got 4 and I'll give you 2. So I gave him 2, and come to find out, those are the best sounding 2 of these 4. So I was like, oh my God, man, I finally get 4 of these, and I sound my buddy my favorite ones. And what I could tell is inside there was some foam inside, and I think it's deteriorated. So I knew, oh, that was what I was going to tell you too. All those old microphones, if you know someone that can open them up and clean them, sometimes the phone deteriorates, like an RE20. That's another great microphone too. I don't have an RE20 here, but that's like a missing person's kick drum. It's the talk show mic. It's Radiohead sings out of it, but that's another great one. But anyways, back to these. So I bought these. I don't know if this one will come off, will it? Yeah, I'm not gonna take them off. But anyways, I bought these because the Beatles were singing out of them. Now that I've gotten them, they're very strange. They're Omnis. Not a lot of low end, but I just did a song, and a guy said he wanted to sing backup on the song, and I just handed it to him. Here, I put it into a really cool Beatle era, kind of a Beatles style of a compressor, slammed it. Sounded really, really good. And so I was happy. But so when I got these, they didn't sound as good as my other ones. So I sent them once again to Nashville, to Cole Pickings, and he took them apart, cleaned them, and when I got them back, they sounded like new mics. So I recommend, if you get some old ones, don't be too sad if they don't sound good. You can always get them worked on, but just understand that if you get old mics, you're gonna run into some point where you're gonna spend a lot of money for a mic that doesn't work. And hopefully you're near Nashville, New York, Los Angeles, or a major city where there's some tech in town that can help you fix them. So these are my AKG D160s, probably my new favorites because I'm fearless. I can use them on anything. Who cares? They're weird. They look good. There's a story behind it. Hey, dude, I'm using a mic that John Lennon singing. Oh, fuck. I'm going to sound so good. See, and then you give it to him, and then he sounds like John Lennon. And that's not happening. Or that's not going to happen. All right, so that's the AKG D160. Alrighty. Now, this mic is cool. My friend Rob is a producer. He told me that Cat Power was in the studio and that she sang in this mic right in front of the speakers, and it rocked. And this is it. It's called an AKG D1000E. A little switch here. I'm sure this is a little roll off. I haven't actually worked on this one. Should check it the next time I get on it, tell you what it does. But I just kind of did a wham bam thank you man with this. I had someone singing it and they loved it, and that was a success. This one, all day, all night, maybe 99 bucks, maybe 100, maybe 120. Well, all I can say is that's all she wrote, except for this one. All right. To my friends that know me, don't roll your eyes. I know. Why are you always talking about this microphone? Because I feel that this microphone may be one of the greatest dynamics ever built. Now, to you out there, it would be like, does it sound as good as a 57? Sounds nothing like a 57 or a 421 or Sennheiser 421 or anything on earth. It's called an AKG D224E. It weighs a lot. I believe there's two elements in it. One's high end and one's low end. I saw a guy once that had a foam on the back and a foam on the top, and I was just like, does that guy even know how to, like, where to put the foam? But I think he may have been using it because somewhere out here, that could be it, there's a vent. So you have vents here, like there's two elements. If you took this apart, it'd be like a submarine inside, minus the sailors. It's like crazy. So, once again, German engineering. If you get one of these, the roll-off, super important. Make sure it works. Like the AKG D24 and the D19, critical. If that doesn't work, or if they say, well, it's kind of doesn't sound as low end, but it's old, that's why don't buy it. Get one that's working. Once again, Cole, definitely, my friend Cole in Nashville can definitely repair a lot of these if they're not working too well. You can clean them. Sometimes there's a coil that breaks in there, but if you open it up, it's two elements, a low end and a high end. So I forgot to even mention why I like this mic. Same thing, I go to my friend Thomas's. He tells me I gotta use this mic. Oh God, really? Okay, I use it, I'm blown away, I eat my words. Anything Thomas wants me to use now, I'm gonna use it and be like blown away. And then he says, you gotta use this mic on the hi-hats. What? So I put this on the hi-hat of the session, and when I took it home to mix it, I could not believe. It sounds dumb to say it sounded like hi-hats, but it sounded like fucking hi-hats. And I was like, what the hell is that? And then he opened up the hi-hats, it was slushing and moving around, and in the mix, it was incredible. And I was just like, what? I just, you know, you can go all day. I mean, these are $600 to $800 now for these. They used to be a few $100. They even be up to $1,000, but don't buy them unless you know it's working. So now I've got to buy one of these after Thomas. So I look around, I find one, and then I just did a session recently with Pete Thomas, who's the drummer for Elvis Costello. God, he played with Los Lobos, Kika and the Moon Records, Colossal Head. He played with John Paul Jones. Anyways, when I use this on Pete's hi-hats, it was so rewarding to be able to do a mix and just have the hi-hat sound classic. And then I experimented with this and I put it on a guitar. And I remember I showed you how the sound scale works. Don't laugh. So here is the 57 sound bar. All right, you got all this fog. Suddenly this one has no fog, has all the beautiful meatiness of a 57, but cleared up the sound. But then this guy is the sparkle above all these. So when I use this on guitar, it has the most wicked cool upper frequencies, but it doesn't buckle with high sound pressure. And it sounds good. I have 3 of these. The reason I bought 3, because now I've been spot miking the ride with this, and then I use one on the hi-hat, and then the one extra one is a backup, or if I use it on guitar. So, and then I bought these cool little, this one actually is really great. It's called a, what's it? Oh, I can't see it. What does it say? Looks like a rye coat. R-Y-C-O-T-E. Rycote? I don't know. But this actually is pretty badass. I will say, if there's a universal, you know, mic clip that you need that fits a variety of styles. So I just put this beauty in there. I don't want it to break. And then you just tighten the ends evenly around it. Starts to grip it. And I know my mic's safe. So that is it. If you've been nice enough to hang around at the end of this, everybody always says, you know, click the link below and subscribe. I don't know if you want to subscribe to me, because this is the kind of stuff you're going to see. But if you do, I am going to be talking about some tube mics, some ribbons, and actually some demos of these sounds. Some of these mics I talked about, I have some great jammers using them, and I could definitely show you, at least show you clips of what these sounds were like. So I'm not just talking about them like I'm some dude that knows it all. I don't know anything, but I am an enthusiast. So that's it. Avion, it's going down the drain. My mouth drain. Talk to you later. Thanks for sticking around. 1 hour and 39 seconds. Jesus.